Okay, so welcome to another episode of Road to Recovery. I am here today with Eduard Schaepman. He is the chief and founder of Tribes, Inspiring Workspaces. And when I think of Tribes, I always think of Amsterdam, even though you guys are expanding quite a bit in Europe. Every time I go to Amsterdam, I end up at one of your locations. And what's really interesting about Tribes is I think that you guys were kind of on the forefront of bringing design to mundane offices and bringing a really nice energy that can inspire people to work differently. So that's what I identified Tribes with. Maybe you want to give
thanks.
a little, yeah. So very beautiful spaces there. So coming out of Edenhoven, am I saying that correct? Or sorry, you're based out of
the first one. The first one was opened in Eindhoven.
Okay, Eindhoven, sorry. And now you guys have expanded into Belgium, and then of course you have a lot of spaces in Amsterdam. Maybe you want to give a little bit of background. Germany, definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to give me background, yeah.
Yeah, the background is before I started Tribes, I worked for a real estate group, which is 69 buildings in Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. And I made a contract on 15 of the buildings with a company called IWG, Regis. And it looked like at first that we couldn't do a deal with them. So plan B was making one by ourselves. So we already had a kind of business model when we couldn't have a lease contract with IWG. Well, we had in the end, so we put it back between the books, the plan. We sold this portfolio of Chalet Group. That was in 2014. And since I still wanted to do something, I took the plan back from the shelf and I started Tribes, Inspiring Workplaces, which we called before Face Place. Not Facebook, but Face Place. But then we decided to rebrand it to Tribes Inspiring Workplaces. So we announced it in 2015 that we would start in February. Then in May 2015, we opened our first location. That was in Eindhoven, and that was a former building of the portfolio I sold. So I already did the deal on that building before I sold the total amount of buildings. And also we said, okay, if we succeed in Eindhoven, which is a provincial city, we can succeed everywhere. So within the first half year, so in May until December of 2015, we opened 6 locations and also 1 location already in Brussels. We had some seed capital from some private investors, but then we knew that this is a very expensive business if you want to do a lot of openings. So we went to the market and we found a very nice private equity firm from the US who invested in us since the 1st of June 2016. And then we started to grow pretty fast. So at the moment we have 16 locations in the Netherlands, 4 in Belgium and 4 in Germany. And the growth plan at the moment is growing, especially in Germany, in the coming 1.5 years on 15 locations. And amazing. The locations will be always in conurbations, the big cities. So in the Netherlands, that's 4 cities, Amsterdam, The Hague, Rotterdam, Utrecht. In Belgium, it's 1 city, Brussels, but in Germany, it's 7 cities, the 7 big cities in Germany, for example. And then when we have rolled out a total of 35, that's our total formula we have done. That's the 35 still existing nomadic tribes. We will grow the business further in Europe at first to 300 locations in 5 years' time. We still stick to the plan. We are still rolling that in the way we are doing it. A lot of people have asked me, why don't you start in the US straight away? Because they like heritage, they like those things. And I said, no, I want to focus because the growth we do is based on our profitability. So compared
which is very different than most people or most companies out there, your competitors,
yeah. So most of the competitors, especially from the US, went for growth. So the big corporations from the US, there is only one which is profitable, and all the others, which are more or less 8 to 10 years old, are still not profitable. So they will have a difficult time now because, private equity is nice to have, but you still need your own cash on the bank account to see through that you can grow your business. And especially in these times, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
absolutely. Why don't we actually just dive into that then? And because you guys are in a unique position where you are profitable. Of course, this happened. Netherlands, you're pretty much on par with us here in Berlin or in Germany with when the coronavirus hit, and then all the restrictions that kind of started to come into place. So maybe you wanted to speak to how that's affected your community, but also how you foresee it either affecting your company or how you guys are going to kind of come out from this. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, from the beginning, we already focused on corporates, big corporates. So 67% of our clients are big corporates. Those big corporates were used to signing contracts for 5 to 10 years. We have contracts with those big corporates from 3 to 5 years. That's a legal contract, so we still got the income from that. So yes, what you also see is in our locations in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany, all the big corporates stopped working at our locations. But of course, they have a legal contract, so they pay. You also see that most of those big corporates do have their crisis teams still in our locations. Can be an IT team, can be a customer service team, or whatever. So the buildings are not empty. We're still open. So all our locations are open, but we have a lot of restrictions. So for example, if you rented the building and we do not have a reception, but a bar from the beginning, you cannot come closer than 1.5 meters from the bar. You can still order your coffee, etc., but you see that, of course, a lot of people are now working from home. So we still have the revenue coming in. We still get every day the cash in the bank. So that's the good news. And we had a lot of companies asking for what we call the Corona rooms. And that's more an internal name, but there are, for example, banks who want to spread the risk. And they don't want to have their employees on one location, but they want to have them on more locations if they cannot work at home. So we sold more offices, and we also do have a lot of crisis team from the government in Brussels, in the Netherlands, and also in Germany. So we immediately approached them. You need more space, okay? Let's have a contract. So we opened a pandemic contract. Epidemic contract, so it's a contract that they have, and they can still use our offices until the end of this crisis. So it's an ending contract, but the end is then when it's over. What we also see since last week is, especially in the Netherlands and Germany, not in Belgium, but in the Netherlands and Germany, you see a lot of people in the bigger cities like Frankfurt and Amsterdam, who worked for a week at home, but now are fed up of working at home because of a lot of noise, kids, other people working at home, and because internet is not performing well. So this week, all of a sudden, we sold a lot of memberships, day passes, people entering our offices and work there for a few hours. So that's new business for us. That's more the co-working business. Originally, we are more in the space business, renting out offices. And co-working is.
So you mean more like a short-term basis, or like hot desking or dedicated desk members?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is because, what I already said, a lot of people still want to work, and it's not everybody, especially not in the bigger cities like Frankfurt and Amsterdam, do have a house of 300 square meters, but an apartment of 80 to 100 square meters, and then with your partner and kids, it's hardly, it's difficult to work. On the other end, the downside we have is meeting room. So in March, we did 70% of our meeting room income and not the 100% we usually do. And in April, this will be even less. On the other hand, we have now meeting rooms set up in a way that, for example, not 12 people can sit there, but only 4 because of the distance. So we have a lot of rules in the locations. It's the distance, the social distance, it's the cleaning, it's the hand gels, it's not touch stuff, not touch things. I wrote a blog yesterday on my LinkedIn on it. It had about 110K of views, so that was good. And because of that, also more people are now attending. So far so good. We have it under control, but of course it all depends on how long this situation will be. And also looking ahead, we also thought, okay, what can we do? So we are working now with 3 corporates who wanted to go for a conventional lease with a building owner. They decided because of this virus, hey, this is going to happen more in the future. We should have more a flexible contract. And for example, we are working on one contract with one big stock exchange company who said, okay, we want 500 workstations, but when there is a epidemic or a pandemic, we want to take away a lot of workstations. Is it the possibility? So we are working this out, and I think we will close that by the end of March. And that will mean that we have indeed a corporation who would work with us, but if there is a lockdown, for example,
they would have the option
back, and they don't have to pay for the workstations.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So part of the conversation is like, this is going to change co-working. This is going to change the way that people are working because they're getting a taste of it as well, what remote work is like, and also organizing their companies outside of being in a traditional office, right? So people that go to a headquarters, for example, this is their first experience of having their entire team working outside of the office. So it is possible to structure it as such. So let's talk about the future of co-working and how you see that. Like you're saying right now that you're going to be making these shorter term contracts with some other providers. How will that affect your business if they did pull out in a time of crisis? And how are you going to accommodate that as well? Like based on first, your bread and butter being that of the.
What we have seen when.
Sorry, there's a bit of a lag.
So what I think is going to happen, we have seen it before. So for example, Regis started as a business center operator, where you had a lot of closed offices. Then WeWork came into the market and it was more an open space office. So the change you will see is that we're going back to a more closed office environment. Because if I go to my locations, who are still working on the locations, people who have one office, normally with 2 to 3 people, but now they're sitting on their own because they are safe there. What you see is that all the open space offices, there's nobody because people are working too close together. So the way the setup of co-working business center or whatever will be different again. We will see more closed offices instead of open space. And what we will see is more corporates coming into our industry. If you look at Europe, it's only 4 to 5% of all commercial real estate is rented out to operators, and this will grow already far faster than now is predicted by most of the agents, like Jones Lang LaSalle, who predicted that operators would rent by the year of 2035 35% of the total commercial real estate, and this will go faster. So there is an opportunity. Why? Corporates will see that a lot of people can work from home, but that's not the end solution because people are emotional animals. They still want to see each other and they still want to connect with each other, and they want to use every sentence they have. So also see, look, smell, whatever. So what you will see is because everybody gets now used to the techniques of Zoom and team accounts, etc., there, well, we are already used to that because we are operating remote. My headquarters has 25 locations to look at. So we already work with Zoom, we already work with team accounts and whatever, house party or you ever what you name it. So we are now teaching our customers how to do that. But they still, you see that they still want to come and gather together. It will be not as massive as before. It will be, I think, smaller, indeed closed offices. And indeed, we will not vanish. Co-working will still exist. But I really think that the tough times will be for the conventional lease. For big corporates going to go less for whole floors for themselves, but look at the flexibility.
Yeah, that's
so
very.
Thing, of course, if you look at the total.
Yeah, I was going to say that's interesting that you're saying that about the closed offices becoming more prevalent. When I think of co-working, of course, I do think of the private office aspect of things, but I think a lot of the vibe comes from those open, like hustle bustle type spaces. So when that does start to make a shift, is that really co-working, and how does that set it apart from being in a traditional office if you're now just enclosing all of your company? So how do you see that still being appealing to people?
The only thing is what we did, if I look at Thrive, what we did do is, we created co-working on the ground floor, but in the end, the big corporations still want to have their own offices. And some of the corporations switched it just before the corona to open space. So those corporates came back to me, this was not a right decision, was it? No, you wanted to do so. So now we're changing that again. But what I still think is flexibility is the key. Renting out flex space, if it's called co-working meeting room or business center, it doesn't work, doesn't matter. It's about flexibility in lease, and all the names are just names, but a corporate client and also an entrepreneur wants flexibility. The same in what you see in mobile, in cars, in bikes. Everyone wants more flexibility in costs and also in use. So this is a trend which is good for our industry, although a lot of competitors will not survive if this goes long because they are too young and they are not making money.
Absolutely, especially
so there
if they
will
haven't.
Be a shake-up in the industry.
Yeah, I see that too, especially when you're saying a lot of them aren't profitable and they were just focused on expanding and being in every city rather than actually, like you said, proving the concept and then growing from there. So that is really an interesting perspective. Now, I know that you guys are more on the corporate side of things, but how do you foresee this affecting like the smaller co-working spaces or the independents? Of course, if they have a good community, they could survive. But from the perspective of maybe larger players coming in and buying them up, do you see that as a possibility, or do you just see kind of people going by the wayside?
Well, I know that a lot of the bigger companies at the moment, there were only IWG was buying a lot before the corona, but WeWork couldn't buy anything, Industrious couldn't buy, Convene couldn't buy because they were all backed by private equity companies, and Industrious and Convene are still not profitable. So those private equity firms said to them, first show us your profitability before we are going to invest again in you. So this morning also on Bloomberg, there was a whole article on WeWork. They have a lot of clients who only have a monthly contract. So 25% of the customer base has only monthly contracts. So of course, what happens now in the US, everybody is saying, okay, I'm not going to renew for the time being my contract. So that was a change in our industry, which was set up by WeWork. Okay, even more flexibility for customers. We didn't do that. Our average contract length is 2.5 years because we could then also invest more in the space and to the demands of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So we could make it more suitable for the customer itself. So we had a other business model on that. If you now look, for example, at IWG, which I still have a lot of good contacts with because I worked there also for about 10 years, they have especially the problems in the provincial cities. Because a lot of smaller entrepreneurs are saying, okay, I can't pay it, I can't
Mm-hmm.
afford it. I also have some smaller entrepreneurs, for example, in the travel industry. Well, two of them already went bankrupt. Yeah, that's what is happening in these times. So I'm glad we have a solid base. I'm glad we have cash on the bank, and I'm glad we have corporate clients. But I also see that we are losing money on meeting rooms or on clients which cannot go any further. So yes, of course, in the short term, this is an impact to the whole industry. And the ones who are backed well or who have enough cash on the bank will survive. But also we will have difficulties if this goes on until the end of the year, for example. Because you also want to, again, sell new contracts, new openings, grow your business. The positive thing, on the other hand, it's on the building owners. Because a lot of building owners are not renting out anything now. So it's time to get more contracts with building owners. But now you can have contracts where the risk is more on the side of the building owner, which was for a time being not possible. You only could have straightforward contracts because there was not enough space, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. But at this moment, you see the difference going on. Building owners are seeing that an operator is pretty important, that a well-backed operator is also very important. And if that is the case, they know that they can attract more clients because clients are looking for flexibility. And a building owner, there are not a lot of building owners who are supplying that. I mean, Blackstone is owning the office group, but Blackstone is, not totally already integrating the office group to have that on all their buildings because we also rent from Blackstone. Mm-hmm. And so, there is a lot going on in the industry, which makes it enormous interesting.
Absolutely.
It's a different way of management. I mean, of course, we're also looking at all the help from the governments in the 3 countries we are. And of course, we are using that also. The best thing you can do at the moment is see through that you have as much cash on the bank as possible. So, for example, in the 3 countries we are, we don't have to pay taxes until the end of this crisis on salaries, on VAT, etc., etc. So, of course, you go directly to the government and say, we apply for this. So that you can still have a lot of cash on the bank. And these kind of rules are not in every country, and certainly not in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll see a huge change there, I believe. But no, these are great perspectives, and let's just bring it back to your community as well. So not necessarily your corporate clients, but these companies you are seeing that are going bankrupt, or your smaller incomes, and maybe the people that were working in the open spaces. Is there anything you guys are doing to support those communities, or are you kind of passing along the graciousness of the government to your members? And do you want to speak to that?
No, so for example, what you see is that a lot of what I call the entrepreneurs, the companies with up to 10 employees, have not a lot of knowledge about what's all possible with government. So the first thing, if they come and say, okay, we're out of money, or what can we do? We help them to get to those governments and get one of the 8 rules or where they can apply to. And if that is not enough, then also we're going to look, okay, what can we do for you? So for example, you don't pay for this month because you do not have enough money for it. And then we make your contract a little bit longer at the end. So we don't give it away, but for this month you don't have to pay. You pay it at the end of your contract, a month extra. So those are the things we are looking into. because it doesn't, it's no use if you have no clients in the future, so you can better back your clients up. We also supply memberships now this month for free when they only have a membership with us, and they say, okay, we cannot pay for it. Okay, you don't have to pay it. So it's also because you want to still see that your community is coming. We have a lot of, at the moment we have what we call the digital coffee breaks at 10:30 for our customers, where they can join and where they can ask questions. And then we have or a legal advisor or a bank advisor, and they can, in Zoom, you can go to breakout rooms. The customer can go to the breakout room together with one of our advisors who help the entrepreneurs. In the first week, there was not a lot of use of it because everybody was, oh, what's happening? What should I do? And since this week, we see more and more people coming and say, okay, could you help me on this or that or that?
That's amazing. So I have heard this from other people as well, that they're leveraging their communities virtually as well. But it does sound like you guys are really tapping into, making sure that everyone is safe during this time, and that it isn't, oh, you can't pay, you can't belong to the community still. So that sounds like you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah, and the other thing is, still humor should be in. So yesterday we had on all our locations a Zoom after drinks. And so on the 23 locations which were open yesterday, we had about, I believe, in all those digital after drinks, about 3,000 members joining.
Wow.
And we all provided them at their homes with a cocktail. So that was fun.
Can you explain to me how you would do that? How would you provide them cocktails to 3,000 people? You just mail them out or have delivery?
It's not that difficult. It's there is a company called Picnic. Picnic is also in Germany. It's like you order food and then the supermarket chain brings it along. Picnic is a company which is a very young company. I have from what we have is at Schaepman, that's in Geneva, which is a very, very old Geneva named after my family, and it is of my family. So what we did is we already dropped to all the members one bottle of Geneva, and then on what we did on Zoom was, okay, we sent everybody an email, you get the bottle at home, but now we're going to make a cocktail, and these are the ingredients you also need to have. So we have, of course, we have all those tribes. So we have a Suri cocktail, a Hamar cocktail, a Moso cocktail. So every location has its own cocktail, and then they were all together shaking cocktails. So what was the investment? Not a lot. A bottle of Geneva for 3,000 people. It's bottled in my own family, so it's not a lot of cost, and it was shipped out by Picnic because they liked the idea of seeing through that something was done in the area of working.
Do you have any photos of this? Were you able to do like some screen captures of people joining and things? I'd love to see that if that's something you're willing to share outside of your community.
Story in the newspapers next week.
Great, that's fantastic.
Big marketing.
No, that's great.
But this morning there was already in the Dutch news paper a little bit of a glance of what we did, but there will be more coming out next week.
Oh well, Edward, that's amazing. So I think if you could, do you have any advice for the co-working industry right now? Anything like from what you've taken away from this whole experience, if you want to share that for the little guys as well as the big guys like you, anything that you want to leave us with?
I think in the end, the most important thing in any business, and especially in our business, is communication. And if you look at my 10 points, which I put out to my people, is you still need to communicate. You need to manage that communication. They still need to see you. So we're on social media. Every location has its own social media page. You have to watch your tone of voice. It still should be you, but it should be pure. You need to monitor the communication, what's going on. You have to be very adequate, relevant. You have to think about tomorrow. So yes, this is happening now, but how strong can I be when this is over? So think about tomorrow. You need to go on, and you need to be very consistent in what you're doing. So you need to build on your structure. You still need to work every day. Well, I don't know how it goes in every country, but I still visit a location a day. Because of course, my marketing team, finance team, IT, they're all working at home, but I still have my hostesses and my locations manager running their offices. So of course, you need to be there and to coach your troops and see through that you're healthy. Do a lot of sports, eat healthy, sleep well, and then everything is going in the right direction. So see through that you are in control.
No, that's fantastic. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. You're like really gracious and responded very quickly. So I do appreciate that, because I do think you guys bring a lot of value to the industry. And yeah, so we want to continue to follow your journey. I would love to see some of those pictures and definitely read the articles about your cocktails. And yeah, stay in touch with us, and best of luck and stay safe.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.